Each year, as we move through the middle of November, we enter a stretch of days that asks us to pay attention with both our minds and our hearts. Between November 13th and 19th, communities all over the country observe Transgender Awareness Week, a time dedicated to learning, listening, and seeing transgender people as they truly are, whole, vibrant, beloved members of our human family. It's a week for deepening understanding and connections, a week for telling the truth about the challenges transgender people face, challenges shaped by prejudice, discrimination, and violence, and a week for honoring the wisdom and lived experience of those of us who are trans and those of us who love them. At its core, this week is an invitation to widen the circle of compassion and to keep choosing community over fear. And as this week unfolds, it carries us towards November 20th, which every year is recognized as Transgender Day of Remembrance. This year, the holiday falls on Thursday of this coming week. It's a day that is solemn, honest, and sacred. Transgender Day of Remembrance began in 1999 when advocate Gwendolyn Ann Smith gathered their community to remember Rita Hester, a Black transgender woman who was killed the year before. What started as a single vigil has grown into a global practice, with people gathering to say the names of transgender people whose lives were taken by anti-trans violence over the past year. Across sanctuaries and parks and community centers and living rooms, people light candles, speak names aloud, and refuse to let these lives be erased. This matters because we are living in a time when transgender people are targets of intensifying political attacks and dehumanizing rhetoric. This year alone, bills targeting transgender people have been introduced in 49 states, including Maryland, and at the national level. Over 1,000 bills have been filed, and more than 120 have already passed and been signed into law. And there are 500 bills still pending in state legislatures across the country. These bills reach into nearly every area of life, from healthcare to education, to identity documents and sports and bathrooms, employment and family rights. We've also seen significant efforts at the federal level to restrict the basic rights and dignity of transgender people. These aren't abstract debates. They shape the right of transgender people to exist, to thrive, and to belong. We hold to the human cost of these efforts. And this past year brought heartbreaking losses, with 58 trans people who died by violence in the United States in the past year. Most of those 58 were Black or people of color, and more than half were young people aged between 15 and 24. Behind every number is a life with relationships, dreams, gifts, and a whole world of meaning. We honor their losses, and in the midst of all this, we lift up stories of resilience and hope as well. We lift up Pink Havens, a growing nationwide effort where communities create safety networks, quiet, practical acts of protection and support, so transgender people have places to turn for accompaniment and care. Even when political systems fail, communities can choose to show up with love. Pink Havens is offering housing for families of young children, young transgender children who are fleeing red states where the transgender anti-trans legislation is the worst, in order to move to states where they have family protections and care for their children. We also lift up our Unitarian Universalist Association, who this week issued a statement organizing over a dozen other faith traditions, offering a simple and clear statement recognizing that transgender people have worth and dignity, and that standing with them is an act of courage, compassion, and an act of faith. This morning, we also lift up those who have taken their courage all the way to the public square, even to the Supreme Court, offering their own lives and stories for the sake of the broader community. Our hearts are with Becky Pepper Jackson, a student in West Virginia who is challenging that state's ban on transgender students participating fully in sports. This week that also has included Veterans Day, we recognize Commander Emily Hawking Schilling of the U.S. Navy, Commander Blake Dremin of the U.S. Navy, Lieutenant Commander Jared Morgan of the U.S. Navy, Sergeant First Class Catherine Katie Schmid of the U.S. Army, and Staff Sergeant Vidal Leans of the U.S. Air Force. These 5 officers have sued the Trump administration's ban on military service by transgender people, even as they are being forced to retire early. These movements and leaders show us what resilience and integrity look like when lived in real time. And beloveds, in days like these, our commitments can't be theoretical, they have to be lived. So as this season of remembrance and celebration unfolds, I invite us to bring our full selves, our curiosity, our compassion, our willingness to learn and unlearn. Let this be a time not only of remembrance, but of relationship. A time when we recommit to building a community and a world where transgender people can live freely, safely, and joyfully. May our learning be an act of love, may our remembrance be an act of courage, and may our shared hope move us closer to a world where everyone is already held in dignity and belonging. May it be so.
Please join me in the spirit of contemplation and reflection as I share this prayer written by UU minister, Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto. Spirit of life. In these difficult times, we ask for connection to you, to ourselves, to one another, and to our greater purpose. We turn towards you like a swift breeze, able to bring refreshment and life to our hearts that are burdened. We know that you know that transness and gender diversity is life, and that you accept us in all the ways that we are, not as part of being human, but as a multiplicity of expressions of love. We call on you for strength as the way before is long, and we have traveled so far, so far to travel. We travel towards justice. Keep us focused on that. And to make that journey, we need safety and courage in equal measure. Give us both. Soften the hearts of those who are causing their own suffering by clutching their transphobia so tightly. Show them the way back to their own humanity. But above all, we ask for more love around us, more love among us, more love between us. We give thanks and say amen. May it be so.
All first-year students at Wesley Theological Seminary have to take a class called Ministerial Formation. It's a seminar, and while I don't remember everything from that year, I do remember one moment with absolute clarity, when the Dean of Student Life stood before our incoming class at a seminary and said, "Always and everywhere reject the binary. Always and everywhere reject the binary. I wish I remembered his whole lecture, but that line stayed with me, and he was reminding us that life is never as neat as our minds want it to be, never as tidy as the categories society hands us, never as limited to the either-or boxes we're expected to fit into. He said, always and everywhere reject the binary because the God he knew from the Jewish and Christian scriptures was a God who refuses simple categories, a God who is king and servant, healer and wounded, shepherd and lamb. And he told us that if human beings are made in the image of God, then creation itself must be a place of both and, not either or. He wasn't saying that categories have no value at all. They do help us notice things or communicate things to keep ourselves safe. But categories are only tools. They are not truth. They are not ultimate. And here's where we need to be very clear, which is that pushing back on binaries, on difference, does not mean denying the reality of particulars. It's not about removing distinctions, but about celebrating them as part of one beautiful whole. So let me get specific. Gender identity is not an illusion to be dissolved into some generic, we are all the same. It is a lived sacred truth, felt in the body, shaped through experience, and expressed with intention. And so to reject the binary is not to erase gender, but to affirm that the beauty of the universe, the image of the holy itself, is revealed in a rich diversity that is far wider than any category. It's to honor the many ways real people come to know and name themselves. Now, the danger in binaries come when human-made categories become rigid, when they start to define who counts, who belongs, or who is right. When we start telling ourselves there is one right way to be a man, or one right way to be a woman, right way to be productive or faithful or worthy, that's when it becomes dangerous. Authoritarian governments depend on these kinds of binaries because if they can claim their categories are natural law, then they can claim divine or moral authority as they enforce increasingly narrow rules. That is not the world of the holy, and it is not the world we are called to build. So today, as we mark Transgender Awareness Week and look toward Transgender Day of Resilience and Remembrance on Thursday, I come back to that invitation my professor offered. Reject the binary, but celebrate the real particular lives of real particular people. Because life is far more complex, far more beautiful, and far more diverse than any binary can hold. Because each human being is a world of both and because the sacred shows up precisely where boundaries soften and our real selves are allowed to shine. So as we leave this place today, may we witness that complexity with curiosity instead of fear. May we honor both the commonality and the specificity of human experience. And may we commit ourselves again and again to building a world that embraces the truth of both and. Amen. Amen.
Davies is a multicultural, multiracial religious community offering a safe and dynamic space to gather in solidarity and make a difference in the wider world. Whether you're on-site or online, we're creating a shared worship experience. We want to make sure you know you already belong.